The repair bay smelled of scorched metal and solvent. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting shadows on the mechanic crouched at his workbench. His hands were blackened with grease, but his focus never wavered as he carefully realigned the broken actuator of a child's toy robot. It wasn't just any toy, it was an alien girl's most prized possession. Jack Sculder, 32 years old, had been called many things in his life: stubborn, reckless, too sharp-tongued for his own good. But above all, he was a fixer. He'd grown up in scrapyards on Earth's lunar colonies, turning junk into machines that worked better than their original models. Now, exiled from his homeworld for reasons he didn't discuss, he worked as a contract mechanic on Zorath Station, a sprawling trade hub that hung between three suns like a jeweled parasite. "Is it ready yet?" a soft voice asked. The alien girl, Lyra, peeked around the corner. Her blue-tinted skin caught the light, her wide silver eyes full of hope. Jack smirked without looking up. "Patience. You rush a job, you end up with sparks in your lap. Trust me, I've learned that the hard way." She giggled, the sound almost musical, and stepped closer. The robot, a falcon-shaped construct with delicate wings, lay disassembled on the table. Its joints were worn, circuits corroded. To anyone else, it was junk. To Jax, it was a puzzle begging to be solved. "Why do you care so much about fixing it?" she asked. Jax's hands paused. He didn't look at her, just tightened the bolt with deliberate care. "Because somebody has to, and because it matters to you." He didn't add that fixing things was all he knew, all that kept him from thinking too much about the past. The robot's eye lenses flickered as power coursed back into its frame. Lyra gasped. The toy stirred, gave a mechanical chirp, and stretched its wings. She clapped, delighted, while Jax leaned wiping his hands on a rag. "See? Good as new." But before he could enjoy the girl's smile, a shadow fell across the workbench. "Impressive handiwork," a deep voice rumbled. Jax turned. An officer stood at the entrance, tall, broad-shouldered, his uniform pressed with military precision. The insignia on his chest made Jax's stomach drop. Admiral Veyran, commander of the Union Fleet detachment stationed at Zorath. His gaze was sharp, calculating, the kind of look that dissected a man before he even spoke. Jax rose slowly, every instinct telling him to tread carefully. "Admiral, didn't know I had royalty visiting my shop." Veyran ignored the joke. His eyes had locked on Jax's forearm, where the sleeve of his coverall had ridden up. The ink beneath his skin, a tattoo of a stylized falcon clutching lightning in its talons, was suddenly exposed. "The Falcon Unit." Jax cursed under his breath and tugged the sleeve down, but it was too late. The Admiral's expression shifted from curiosity to something colder, harder. "You were one of them," Veyran said quietly. The air seemed to thicken. Lyra blinked between them, not understanding, still hugging her reawakened toy. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jack said, his voice even. But his pulse hammered in his throat. The Falcon Unit wasn't just any unit. It was Earth's most notorious special operations division, the kind whispered about across the galaxy. Officially disbanded after a war, humanity wasn't supposed to win. Its members had scattered into the void. Some dead, some hiding. And some, like Jax, just trying to disappear. Veyran stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Men with that mark don't just fix toys. They break fleets. They rewrite battlefields. They don't vanish into scrapyards unless they're running from something." Jax clenched his jaw. "Maybe I got tired of war. Ever think of that?" "War doesn't get tired of you," the Admiral said, his voice edged like a blade. Silence pressed heavy between them. The mechanical falcon chirped again, as if mocking the tension. Jax forced a smirk, though his stomach was knotted. "Admiral, unless you've got a broken toaster that needs fixing, you're wasting my time." But he knew this wasn't over. The tattoo had spoken louder than any denial. Veyran didn't reply. He gave Jax one last look, a mixture of suspicion and recognition, and turned sharply, his boots striking the deck like hammers as he left. The door slid shut, leaving only the hum of machinery and the faint, frightened breath of the alien girl. "Jax, who was that?" she asked. He stared at the door, the rag still clenched in his hands. "Trouble," he muttered. The kind of trouble he'd spent years trying to outrun. And now it had found him. The repair bay was quiet after Admiral Veyran left, but Jax could still feel the weight of his stare lingering like smoke. He leaned against the workbench, rubbing his temples. Years of staying small, invisible, had just been undone by a careless roll of his sleeve. Lyra was still hugging her toy Falcon, but her wide eyes were fixed on him. "Why did he look at you like that? Like you were dangerous?" Jax forced a laugh, though it came out thin. "Because admirals don't like grease-stained mechanics, that's all." She frowned. Aliens her age weren't good at reading human lies, but even she sensed the tension. He knew something. Something about that mark. Jax sighed. "Best thing you can do, kid, is forget you ever saw it." But he couldn't forget. The Falcon Unit wasn't just a tattoo. It was a blood oath, a name carved into the nightmares of half the galaxy. There'd been human special forces deployed where conventional fleets failed. Black ops, sabotage, turning wars with surgical brutality. And Jax had walked away from it all. He thought he could stay forgotten. A soft chirp broke the silence. The toy Falcon fluttered its wings, metallic feathers glinting under the bay's weak light. Lyra smiled despite the tension, stroking the toy like it was alive. Jax envied her innocence. Then the comm speaker on the wall crackled. "Attention, Zorath Station. All civilian contractors report to security checkpoints immediately. This is a mandatory sweep." Jax froze. A mandatory sweep on a trade hub like this wasn't random. That was a net, and he was the catch. "Stay here," he told Lyra, voice sharp. "Don't open the door for anyone but me." Her silver eyes widened. "Jax, what's happening?" "Nothing you need to worry about. Just keep your toy close." He forced a smile, then pulled his jacket on and palmed the small sidearm he kept hidden under the workbench. It was old, scratched, but reliable. Out in the corridor, the station had changed. Sirens pulsed in steady rhythm, and armored patrols swept through with rifles at the ready. Traders and dockhands were herded into lines, their IDs scanned. The Admiral's doing, no doubt. Veyran wasn't wasting time. Jax blended into the crowd, head down, trying to look like any other contractor. He passed 2 checkpoints without issue, but at the third, a Union officer held his scanner over Jax's ID chip, and the device blinked red. The officer's expression hardened. "Step aside." Jax's gut dropped. The ID chip was fake, cobbled together from old Falcon connections years ago. Reliable until it wasn't. "Problem?" Jax asked, masking his panic. The officer didn't answer. He raised his comm. "We've got a red flag. Tag code matches restricted Earth military files." "Damn it!" Before the officer could react further, Jax moved. A sharp elbow to the gut, a twist of the wrist, and the rifle was in his hands. He fired a single stun round into the ceiling. Chaos erupted instantly. Civilians screamed. Guards scattered. Jax bolted. He ducked into a maintenance shaft, sprinting through the narrow steel corridors. He knew better than most. The station was a maze, but mechanics had ways of moving unseen. His breath burned in his chest as the sirens shifted pitch. He was now the hunted. Memories clawed at him as he ran. Breaching warships under fire. Silent infiltration on alien strongholds. The Falcon Unit training that had broken and reforged him. He'd sworn never to use it again. But survival didn't care about promises. A bulkhead door slammed shut ahead. Union troops rounded the corner. Rifles raised. "Hands where we can see them!" one barked. Jax's mind raced. He couldn't let them drag him to Veyran. Once the Admiral had him, the Falcon Unit would be exposed, and Earth's enemies would remember why humanity had been feared. Instead of surrendering, Jax ducked into cover. 2 shots cracked past his head. He returned fire, precise, controlled. 1 soldier fell, stunned. Another disarmed with a clean shot to his rifle. He moved before they could regroup, vanishing into another shaft. His body remembered the rhythm of combat. It terrified him how natural it felt. At last, he burst out into a cargo bay, chest heaving. Crates towered around him, shadows stretching long. He knew he couldn't keep running forever. The Admiral's net was tightening. "Falcon!" The voice froze him. Calm, controlled, close. From the shadows, Admiral Veyran stepped forward, flanked by 2 guards. His eyes locked on Jax's with grim certainty. "You can run through half the station, Calder, but men like you don't vanish. Not really. You think you've buried the Falcon Unit, eh? But the galaxy hasn't forgotten. Neither have I." Jax leveled his weapon, though his hand trembled. "Then you should have left it buried." Veyran didn't flinch. "On the contrary, humanity may need its monsters again." The words hit harder than the gunfire. Jax had spent years outrunning his past. Now it was standing right in front of him, asking for resurrection. And he didn't know if he could refuse. Nah. The cargo bay's silence was sharp, broken only by the low hum of Zorath Station's engines. Jax's finger rested against the trigger of his pistol, but he didn't fire. Veyran stood tall, unarmed but not unguarded. 2 soldiers flanked him, weapons at the ready. "You cornered the wrong man," Jax growled, his voice rough. Veyran shook his head slowly. "No, Calder. I found the one man I've been looking for." Jax's jaw tightened. "You want to haul me off in chains? Fine. But don't pretend this is anything else." "I could drag you away, yes," Veyran admitted, his tone infuriatingly calm. "But what I want is for you to come willingly. You think the galaxy has forgotten the Falcon Unit? Let me assure you, our enemies have not. They are stirring again, quietly, patiently, and when they move, the Union won't be ready." "Not my problem," Jax shot back. His pistol didn't waver, but his gut churned. "Not your problem." Veyran's voice hardened, cutting like steel. "When colonies burn, when children like that alien girl clutch their broken toys because their homes have been shattered, tell me, Calder, will you still say it's not your problem?" Lyra's face flashed in his mind, the way she'd hugged that robot like it was family. Jax clenched his teeth. "I've given enough," he muttered. "Bled enough. For a world that threw me away." The Admiral took a slow step closer. His soldiers didn't move, watching Jax like hawks. "The Falcon Unit was feared for a reason. Not because of your weapons, because of your resolve. And whether you want it or not, that resolve is needed again. You can keep pretending to be a mechanic, but the truth is carved into your skin." He nodded toward the tattoo hidden under Jax's sleeve. Jax's hand shook, just slightly. He lowered the pistol a fraction. "What's in it for you, Admiral? Why risk pulling an old ghost out of hiding?" Veyran's eyes flickered weirdly. "It's something unguarded. Weariness, maybe. Because I've seen what's coming. And because I'd rather fight alongside a monster than bury billions under the arrogance of peace." The words hung heavy in the air. Before Jax could respond, the bay door slammed open. Another squad of soldiers stormed in, rifles raised. Veyran raised his hand sharply. "Stand down! He's with me!" The soldiers froze, exchanging uneasy glances. They obeyed, but their eyes never left Jax. Jax holstered his pistol reluctantly, though tension still coiled in his muscles. "If this is some kind of recruitment pitch, you're wasting your breath." "Maybe," Veyran said, "but maybe not." He turned to leave, his soldiers falling in around him. At the door, he paused and glanced back. "Think carefully, Calder. Ghosts don't stay buried forever. Decide whether you'll haunt the galaxy as a shadow, or fight for it as a soldier." And then he was gone. The cargo bay felt emptier than before. Jax exhaled slowly, running a hand through his sweat-matted hair. He should have felt relieved. Instead, A gnawing unease dug at him. Back in his workshop, he found Lyra sitting exactly where he'd left her, clutching the mechanical Falcon to her chest. She jumped up when he entered. "You're back! They were searching everywhere. I was scared." Jax managed a tired smile. "Told you I'd be fine." She tilted her head, studying him with unnerving seriousness for a child. "You weren't just fixing things before, were you?" He froze. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You were someone dangerous." Jax crouched in front of her, resting a hand on the toy robot. Its eyes blinked softly, reflecting both of their faces. "Yeah," he admitted quietly, "I used to be. But I walked away from that life." "Then why are they after you?" she asked. "Because some people don't like it when monsters stop being monsters," he said, voice low. "They want them on a leash, or in the ground." She hugged the Falcon tighter. "But you're not a monster to me." The words hit him harder than he expected. He stood, pacing, his thoughts racing. The Admiral's warning echoed in his head. Enemies stirring, colonies burning, humanity unprepared, and him caught in the middle of a choice he thought he'd never have to make again. For the first time in years, Jax felt the old hunger awaken, the instinct to fight, not run. But if he stepped back into that world, there'd be no turning away this time. The Falcon tattoo on his arm seemed to burn under his skin. Jax didn't sleep. He lay on the narrow cot in his workshop, staring at the ceiling while the station's hum vibrated through the walls. The mechanical Falcon perched on a shelf nearby, its glowing eyes blinking occasionally, as if it were watching him. Every word Admiral Veyran had spoken replayed in his mind. Monsters, colonies burning, humanity unprepared. He told himself he didn't care. He told himself he'd earned the right to stay hidden, to fix toys and engines and nothing more. But that voice inside, the one that had led Falcon Unit through firestorms and orbital sieges, kept whispering, "You don't get to walk away." At dawn cycle, the station's alarms wailed again. Jax sat up instantly, instincts flaring. This time, the announcement was sharper. Urgent. Lockdown protocol engaged. All non-essential movement restricted. Civilian contractors remain in quarters until cleared by security. He cursed under his breath. This wasn't a sweep anymore. This was a hunt. Lyra shuffled in from the back room, still clutching her toy. Her silver eyes were wide. "What's happening now?" "Nothing good," Jax muttered. He checked his pistol, then tossed on his jacket. "We're leaving." "Leaving, but no arguments." His voice was sharp enough to stop her mid-sentence. He softened it a bit later. "If they're locking the station, it won't be safe for you. Or me." He didn't add the truth. It was his fault. The Admiral's net was dragging everyone in, and Lyra would be crushed in it if she stayed near him. They slipped into the maintenance shafts again, Jax guiding her through the labyrinthine guts of Zorath. He knew these passages better than most soldiers knew their own boots. That was his edge. But as they moved, Jax noticed the patrols were different. Smarter. Coordinated. Veyran was no fool. He was tightening the net, driving Jax toward a corner he couldn't escape. At 1J, Unction. They nearly collided with a squad. Jax pulled Lyra against the wall, covering her mouth as armored boots thundered past. He could feel her trembling beneath his hand. When the patrol was gone, she whispered, "Why are they after you?" "Really?" Jax exhaled slowly. He didn't want to tell her, but lies wouldn't hold anymore. "Because once, I was part of a unit that did things no one wants to remember. We fought wars in shadows. We broke enemies in ways that made them afraid to ever face humans again. And now, someone thinks it's time to wake that nightmare back up." Her small voice was steady. "So, you were a protector." Jax's chest tightened. "That's one way to put it. But protectors don't always come home clean." They pushed deeper into the shafts, but every path seemed blocked. At last, they reached the outer docks, a cavernous bay with ships stretching like slumbering beasts. Cargo crews shouted, Alarms blared, and Union soldiers swept through with scanners. Jax ducked behind a stack of crates, scanning the crowd. He needed a ship. Any ship. That's when he saw the Admiral. Vaden stood on the command gantry above, flanked by officers, his gaze scanning the chaos below like a hawk. He wasn't searching blindly. He knew Jax was here. Their eyes locked. And in that instant, Jax realized Vaden wasn't trying to kill him. He was testing him. Herding him. The Admiral raised a hand. Troops began to close in from all sides. Jax swore under his breath, then grabbed Lyra's hand. Time to move. They sprinted, weaving through crates and shouting workers. A soldier lunged at them. Jax dropped him with a quick strike, never slowing. Shots cracked overhead, plasma bolts searing the air. Lyra clutched her toy Falcon to her chest, her breath ragged with fear. At the far end of the bay, a small freighter was prepping for launch. Its engines whined, cargo ramp lowering. Jax made for it, but before they reached it, a wall of soldiers blocked their path. Rifles aimed, voices barked. Freeze! Jax skidded to a stop, pulling Lyra behind him. His pistol was raised, but the numbers were impossible. And then, the mechanical Falcon on Lyra's shoulder twitched. Its eyes glowed brighter. With a piercing electronic screech, it unfolded its wings, wider, sharper than Jax had ever seen them. A burst of energy rippled from its frame, sending a shockwave through the soldiers' ranks. They stumbled, stunned. What the hell? Jax muttered, staring at the toy. Lyra gasped. I didn't know it could do that! The freighter's ramp began to rise. They had seconds. Jax grabbed her and sprinted, leaping Okuware, into the platform as it sealed shut behind them. Inside, alarms blared as the ship lifted. Jax slammed the hatch controls, then collapsed against the bulkhead, chest heaving. Lyra clung to the Falcon, whose wings slowly folded back to their harmless toy-like state. She looked up at him, her expression a mix of wonder and fear. It saved us! Jax stared at the little machine, unease gnawing at him. He had fixed it, but he hadn't given it that capability, which meant someone else had. And he had a sinking feeling that whoever it was, they weren't done with him. The freighter rumbled as it broke from Zorath Station's docking clamps, engines roaring. Jax steadied himself against the bulkhead, still catching his breath. Lyra huddled beside him, clutching the toy Falcon as if it were her lifeline. Its eyes glowed faintly, dimming as the last traces of energy faded from its unexpected burst. Where's this crate headed? Jax asked the ship's pilot through the cockpit doorway. The pilot, a weary-looking trader with scales along his neck, glanced back nervously. Cargo run to the outer belts. I didn't sign up to smuggle fugitives. Who the hell are you? Just a mechanic, Jax said, though even he heard how hollow it sounded. The pilot snorted. Mechanics don't carry sidearms or dodge Union kill squads. Before Jax could answer, the ship jolted violently. Warning klaxons blared. Out the viewport, sleek Union interceptors slid into pursuit, their weapons glowing. Damn it, Jax muttered. Vaden's not letting go. The pilot paled. We can't outrun them. Jax stepped forward, scanning the controls. Old Falcon instincts clicked into place. Then we don't outrun them. We outfly them. The pilot hesitated, then slid aside. Jax took the controls, hands steady, muscles remembering motions he hadn't used in years. The ship rolled into a dive as plasma bolts streaked past. The stars spun, Zorath shrinking behind them. Jax gritted his teeth, throwing the freighter into maneuvers no civilian ship was ever designed for. The hull groaned, but it held. One interceptor clipped their wake, spiraling out of formation. Another cut across their bow. Jax jerked the ship hard, scraping past by meters. Lyra clung to the seat, eyes wide. You've done this before. Once or twice, Jax said tightly, but more interceptors were closing. They couldn't fight forever. Then the toy Falcon stirred again. Its wings snapped open, glowing veins of energy coursing through its frame, It launched from Lyra's hands, hovering in the cockpit like a living weapon. "Jax!" Lyra cried. He didn't have time to ask questions. The Falcon darted out through the viewport's emergency vent, leaving streaks of light in its wake. It split into a dozen holographic copies, weaving between the interceptors, scrambling their targeting systems. Plasma fire went wide, ships collided. In seconds, the pursuit was in chaos. Jax took the opening, diving the freighter into the asteroid fields at the edge of the belt. The Union ships hesitated to follow. When the Falcon finally returned, folding its wings as it perched on the console, Jax stared at it grimly. "That thing isn't a toy anymore." Lyra hugged it close, shaking her head. "But it's mine." He studied the emblem etched faintly into its plating, so faint he hadn't noticed before. A stylized falcon with lightning in its talons, the same mark on his arm. His stomach sank. "This isn't a coincidence." The cockpit comm crackled. Veyran's voice filled the space, calm but commanding. "Impressive, Calder. Still flying like a falcon. And the toy? Consider it. A message. You're not done. None of us are." Jax's grip on the controls tightened. "You planted this on her? Call it a safeguard. A reminder of what you are." Veyran's tone hardened. "You can keep running, Calder, but sooner or later, you'll face the truth. Humanity needs its predators again. And when that day comes, I'll be waiting." The signal cut. Silence has filled the cockpit. Jax sat back, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. His chest was tight, but his mind was clearer than it had been in years. He couldn't erase his past, couldn't bury the Falcon Unit forever, but he could decide what it meant. He looked at Lyra, clutching the Falcon like a shield against the galaxy. She trusted him. Not the Admiral, not the Union, not the old ghosts of war. Him. "Listen, kid," Jax said quietly. "I'm not a hero. I'm not even sure I'm the good guy, but as long as you're with me, I'll make damn sure no one takes you, or your home, or your freedom." Lyra's silver eyes shimmered. She nodded once, firmly. The mechanical falcon gave a soft chirp, its eyes glowing brighter, as if in agreement. Jax flexed his arm, the tattoo burning beneath the sleeve. He wasn't going back to the Falcon Unit, not on their leash. But maybe, just maybe, he could forge something new from its shadow. The freighter slipped deeper into the stars, leaving Zorath and its Admiral behind, for now. But Jax knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because once a Falcon takes flight, he never truly lands.